My name is Kimberly Taylor. I'm 32 years old, born and raised in a small town just outside Bristol, England. I've spent most of my life being the responsible one, the one who fixes things, who keeps the peace, who never complains, who never asks for help. For as long as I can remember, I was taught that family comes first, that blood is thicker than water, that you stand by your siblings no matter what. But 3 weeks ago, I was standing in a phone repair shop, holding my younger brother's cracked mobile in my hands, when a tech repair specialist looked me dead in the eye and said something that made my blood run cold. "Miss Taylor," he said quietly, his voice steady but urgent. "You need to cancel your credit cards, change every lock in your house, and whatever you do, don't let your brother know that you know." I stared at him, confused, thinking he must be joking, but his face was pale, his eyes serious. "What are you talking about?" I asked. He turned the phone screen toward me, and in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my family, about trust, about loyalty, shattered into 1,000 pieces. Tell me in the comments, have you ever discovered that the person you trusted most in the world was planning to destroy you? My story starts long before that moment in the repair shop. It starts in childhood, in a modest, terraced house where love was conditional and attention was currency. I grew up with my younger brother, Damien. From the moment he was born, he was special, charismatic, charming, the kind of child who could smile his way out of any trouble. I was different, quiet, studious, the kind of daughter who did her homework without being asked, who helped around the house, who never caused problems. My parents owned a small printing business, Taylor Print Solutions. Nothing glamorous, but it kept us comfortable. We had family holidays to Cornwall, decent Christmases, a roof over our heads. But in our house, attention was scarce, and Damien knew how to monopolize it. When he failed his exams, Mum would say, "He's just not a traditional learner, he's creative, that one." When I brought home top marks, Dad would say, "That's wonderful, love. Now, could you help me with the invoices?" When Damien got arrested for shoplifting at 15, they hired a solicitor and called it a mistake. When I got accepted to the University of Manchester to study business, Dad sat me down at the kitchen table and said, "Kim, that's brilliant, really, but who's going to help us at the shop?" I remember staring at him, waiting for him to laugh, to say he was joking. He wasn't. "We need you here," Mum added softly. "The business is struggling. We can't manage without you." So I deferred my acceptance. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd go next year. But next year never came. I spent my late teens and early 20s behind the counter of Taylor Print Solutions. I answered phones. I managed inventory. I learned bookkeeping from YouTube tutorials at midnight. Meanwhile, Damien went backpacking across Europe. He sent postcards from Barcelona, Amsterdam, Prague. He called home when he needed money. And every single time, Mum sent it. When he came back a year later, broke and jobless, they threw him a welcome home party. I said nothing. I smiled. I poured drinks. That's what good daughters do, right? By the time I turned 25, I'd become indispensable to the business. I'd modernized our website, brought in corporate clients, streamlined our processes. For the first time in years, we were turning a real profit. Dad noticed. He started talking about the future, about succession planning, about making sure both his children were taken care of. Then, 2 years ago, on a gray Tuesday morning, Dad had a massive heart attack while opening the shop. He died before the ambulance arrived. The funeral was held on a Thursday. Gray skies, persistent drizzle, The kind of weather that makes grief feel heavier. I organized everything: the service, the flowers, the wake. I wrote the obituary, chose the hymns, coordinated with the crematorium. Damien showed up the morning of, red-eyed and emotional. At the service, he gave a beautiful eulogy. His voice cracked in all the right places. He talked about Dad's kindness, his work ethic, his devotion to family. People cried. Everyone hugged him afterward, told him how strong he was, how much Dad would be proud. I stood in the corner in my black dress, accepting condolences with a numb smile. No one asked who'd found Dad's body that morning, who'd called 999, who'd held his hand while we waited for the ambulance that arrived 15 minutes too late. No one needed to ask. They assumed it was Damien, the devoted son. It was me. But grief, like love, isn't distributed fairly in families. At the wake, Damien drank too much and told stories about Dad. Funny stories, touching stories, stories that made him the hero. I served sandwiches and made tea. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the empty shop. Dad's reading glasses were still on the desk. His coffee mug, unwashed, sat beside the computer. I picked up the glasses, held them in my hands, and tried to remember the last thing he'd said to me. It was, "Kim, can you handle the Henderson order tomorrow? I'm not feeling well." Not "I love you," not "thank you." Not "you've been wonderful," just a work request. And I'd said yes. Of course I'd said yes, because that's what I always did. A week after the funeral, Dad's solicitor read the will. It was simple, straightforward. The house went to Mum. The business was split 50-50 between Damien and me, equal partners. "Your father wanted you two to take care of each other," the solicitor said. I looked at Damien across the table. He smiled at me, that charming, easy smile. "Partners, then," he said, extending his hand. I shook it. That was my first mistake. For the first few months after Dad's death, nothing changed. I continued running the shop. Morning deliveries, customer orders, staff schedules, payroll, taxes. Damien showed up occasionally, usually with expensive coffee from the new cafe in town, and apologies about being busy with networking opportunities. "I'm building connections," he'd say. "For the business. You'll see." I didn't mind. Honestly, I preferred working alone. I knew every corner of that shop, every quirk of the equipment, every preference of our regular clients. The business was my safe space, my purpose. But then, about 6 months after the funeral, Damien started getting involved. He'd drop by unannounced, leaf through the order books, ask questions about revenue and margins. "We should expand," he said one Tuesday afternoon, leaning against the counter. "Open a second location, maybe in Bath or Oxford." I looked up from the invoice I was preparing. "We're barely keeping up with current demand. I'm working 6 days a week as it is." "So, hire more staff." "With what money?" "We're profitable, but we're not rich." He shrugged. "Then we should sell." The words hung in the air between us. "Sell?" I repeated. "Yeah, cash out, split it 50-50. You could finally do something with your life. Go traveling, go to university, whatever you want." I felt something cold settle in my chest. This is Dad's legacy. Dad's dead, Kim. This is just a business. Just a business. I wanted to throw something at him. Instead, I went back to my invoice. "I'm not selling," I said quietly. He sighed, like I was being difficult. "Fine. But we need to talk about restructuring at some point." "What does that mean?" "Legal stuff. Making sure we're protected. Tax efficient. I know a guy who can help." What guy? A solicitor. Gregory Holt? He specializes in family businesses. I should have asked more questions, should have demanded details. But I was tired, overwhelmed, grieving in a way I hadn't allowed myself to. Fine, I said. Set up a meeting. That was my first real mistake. Looking back now, I can see the pattern. How Damien tested boundaries. How he framed his manipulation as help. How he waited until I was too exhausted to fight back. I refused to sell. This was Dad's legacy. I wasn't going to let it go for a quick payout. So Damien changed tactics. He became helpful, supportive. "You're right, Kim," he said one afternoon. "We should keep it, but we need to protect it. Legally, I mean." He said he had a friend, a solicitor named Gregory Holt, who could help us restructure the business, make it more tax efficient, protect our assets. It sounded reasonable, sensible. "I'll set up a meeting," Damien said. "You don't have to do anything. I'll handle the legal side." I was grateful. For once, my brother was stepping up, taking responsibility. 2 weeks later, Damien showed up at closing time with a briefcase and that charming smile I'd seen charm teachers, police officers, and our parents out of consequences his entire life. "Got the paperwork from Holt," he said, setting the briefcase on the counter. "It's pretty straightforward. Just need both our signatures." He pulled out 3 thick folders, each one labeled with official-looking headers. Trust documentation, asset protection framework, business continuity planning. "What is all this?" I asked, flipping through the first folder. "Standard stuff," Damien said casually. "Setting up a trust structure so if anything happens to either of us, the business is protected. Tax benefits, too." I scanned the first page. Dense legal language. Clauses and subclauses. References to sections I didn't understand. Shouldn't I read through this properly? If you want. But Holt said it's all standard. Every family business does this eventually. I looked at the stack. 40 pages per folder. 120 pages total. We had a rush order due the next morning. Corporate client. Big contract. I'd been up since 5 preparing it. "I don't have time tonight," I said. "That's fine. I'll leave them here. You can read through and sign whenever." But then he paused, as if remembering something. "Actually, Holt mentioned there's a deadline. Something about the tax year ending. If we don't file by Friday, we lose the benefits for this year and have to wait another 12 months. "This Friday? That's 3 days away." I know. He should have mentioned it earlier. But honestly, Kim, it's just formalities. I've already signed my sections. You just need to sign yours." He flipped to the back pages of each folder, where little yellow tabs marked signature lines. 3 signatures, that's all. I was so tired. Bone tired, soul tired. And it was just 3 signatures. "Fine," I said, picking up a pen. I signed where he pointed. I didn't read the clauses above my name. I didn't notice the fine print that said, "Transfer of operational authority." I didn't see the section about sole managing director designation. I just signed. Damien witnessed each signature, his handwriting neat beside mine. "There we go," he said, gathering the folders. "All sorted. I'll drop these off to Holt tomorrow. Should I keep a copy?" "I'll get copies made and bring them by next week." He never did. That night, I lay awake thinking about those signatures. Something nagged at me, a feeling I couldn't quite name. But I was too exhausted to pursue it. Too trusting to imagine my own brother would deceive me. That was my second mistake. The bigger one. For the next year, everything seemed fine. The business grew. We hired 2 new staff members. We invested in better equipment. I worked 60-hour weeks. Damien worked when it suited him. But he was family, and family is what matters, right? Then, 3 weeks ago, small things started going wrong. My business credit card was declined at our paper supplier. I called the bank. They said the account had been closed. That's impossible, I said. I didn't authorize that. According to our records, Mr. Damien Taylor closed it and opened a new account, the bank representative said. I hung up and called Damien. He didn't answer. The next day, I couldn't access our company email. The password had been changed. When I finally reached Damien, he was dismissive. Probably just a technical glitch, he said. I'll sort it. But he didn't. Then a client called, confused. We received an invoice from a different company name, she said. Meridian Holdings? We thought we were dealing with Taylor Print Solutions. I'd never heard of Meridian Holdings. That night, I went through our files. I pulled every document Damien had ever given me to sign, and that's when I saw it. Buried in the middle of a 40-page document in small print was a clause about transferring operational control to a managing director. The managing director was listed as Damien Taylor. Not both of us, just him. My hands started shaking. I called Elena Volkov, an old friend from my university days before I'd deferred. She'd gone on to become a forensic accountant in London, specializing in financial fraud. Elena, I need your help, I said. What's wrong? I told her everything, the closed accounts, the changed passwords, the mysterious company name. There was a long pause. Kimberly, do you have access to all the documents you signed? Yes. Scan them. Send them to me tonight. Every single page. Why? What do you think is happening? I think your brother is stealing your business, she said quietly. And if I'm right, we don't have much time. I stayed up until 3 a.m, scanning documents. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The next morning, I went to Mum's house. I needed to confront Damien, but he wasn't there. He's away on business, Mum said, making tea. He said something about meeting investors in London. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Dad had asked me to give up university, where we'd celebrated birthdays and Christmases, where I'd learned that love in our family was conditional. That's when I saw it. Damien's phone, sitting on the counter, cracked screen, dead battery. He left it behind, Mum said. Always forgetting things, that boy. I stared at that phone for a long moment. Then I made a decision. Mum, I'm going to take it to get repaired for him, I said. As a nice gesture, she smiled. That's sweet of you, love. I picked up the phone and walked out. I drove straight to Ashford Mobile Repair, a small shop near the train station. The owner, Colin Wright, was ex-military. He'd fixed my phone once before. He was thorough, trustworthy. When I walked in, he was hunched over a laptop, his reading glasses halfway down his nose. The shop smelled like solder and coffee. Miss Taylor, he said, looking up with a smile. What can I do for you today? My brother's phone, I said, holding it up. Cracked screen, dead battery. He asked me to bring it in. That was a lie, but it sounded better than admitting I'd taken it without permission. Colin took the phone, turned it over in his hands. No problem. Screen replacement, battery check. Should be ready by this afternoon. Perfect. I'll need the passcode to test it after repair. I gave him our mother's birthday. 4 digits she'd used for everything since we were children. The house alarm, her bank card, her phone. Damien had never bothered to change it. Colin nodded, wrote the code on a service slip. Give me about an hour. There's a cafe next door if you want to wait nearby. I spent that hour at the cafe, nursing a cappuccino and trying to answer work emails, trying to act normal, but my hands kept shaking. At 11:30, Colin called. "Miss Taylor, could you come back to the shop?" Something in his voice made my stomach drop. "Is the phone ready?" "Yes, but I need to show you something. It's important." When I walked back in, Colin was standing behind the counter, arms crossed. His usual friendly demeanor was gone. "Is everything all right?" I asked. He glanced toward the window, as if checking that no one was watching, then locked the front door and flipped the sign to closed. "You need to sit down," he said. My heart started pounding. "Colin, you're scaring me." "I'm sorry, but you need to see this." He turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was Damien's phone, connected via a cable, its contents displayed in neat folders. When I was transferring data after the repair, I noticed something unusual, Colin said carefully. "Hidden applications, the kind that don't show up on a normal home screen." "What kind of applications?" "Surveillance software, location trackers, keyloggers, remote access programs." I stared at him, not understanding. "What does that mean?" "It means your brother's phone is set up to monitor other devices, to access accounts remotely, to track locations in real time." "Whose devices?" Colin's expression was grim. "I think yours, Miss Taylor." The room tilted. "That's not possible." "I wish it wasn't, but look." He opened an app disguised as a system settings folder. Inside were logs, pages and pages of logs, location history, my flat, the shop, the supermarket, my mother's house, login attempts, my email, my banking apps, the business accounts, keystroke records, passwords I'd typed, messages I'd sent. "How long has this been running?" I whispered. "Based on the file dates, at least 18 months. 18 months, since right after Dad died." "There's more?" Colin said quietly. "The messaging app." He opened it. At first glance, it looked normal. Texts to Mum, to friends, to me. But then he scrolled to a section labeled Scheduled. "These are automated messages," he explained, "set to send at specific future dates." He showed me, all sent to a contact saved as G. The first message, scheduled from 3 months ago. "Transfer documents finalized, signature verified." She signed without reading. The second, from 6 weeks ago. "New company account active under Meridian Holdings. Redirect all client payments by Friday." The third, scheduled to send next week. "She's asking questions. Move faster. Lock her out completely by end of month." The fourth, scheduled for a month from now. "It's done. She's gone. Full control established." I read that last line 3 times. She's gone. What did that mean? Was it just about removing me from the business? Or something worse? "Who is G?" I whispered. Colin tapped on the contact. A phone number appeared. No name, just an initial. "Miss Taylor," Colin said carefully, "this isn't just fraud. This is premeditated. Identity theft, financial manipulation, and if he's tracking your location in real time, you're not safe." I stared at the messages until the words blurred together. "What do I do?" I asked. "First, you cancel every card, every account. You change every password, every lock. Then you document everything and you call a lawyer, a good one." I nodded numbly. "Can you copy all of this?" I asked. "Everything on the phone?" "Already done," he said, handing me a USB drive. "Encrypted, password protected. This is your evidence." I looked at Colin. This man who barely knew me, who had no reason to help me, and felt tears burning behind my eyes. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Because I've seen what happens when people don't act fast enough," he said. And because what your brother's doing, it's not just illegal, it's evil. I drove home in a daze. I sat in my car outside my flat for 10 minutes, staring at the USB drive in my hand. Then I called Elena. "I have proof," I said. "Send it to me. Right now." I did. An hour later, she called back. "Kimberly, this is worse than I thought." "How bad?" "Your brother's been working with someone. This Gregory Holt, the solicitor. He's done this before. At least 4 times. He targets family businesses where one sibling has legal access, but no oversight. He helps them strip assets, create shell companies, transfer ownership." My stomach twisted. "So, what do I do?" "You fight back, but you have to be smart. If he knows you're onto him, he'll accelerate. We need to move carefully." "Tell me what to do." "First, act normal. Don't confront him. Don't let him know anything's changed. Meanwhile, I'll start building a case. We'll need bank statements, contracts, everything." "And Kimberly?" "Yes." "Don't trust anyone he's introduced you to. Not his solicitor, not his accountant. No one." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about every time I'd trusted my brother, every time I'd given him the benefit of the doubt. And I realized something. He'd been planning this since Dad died. Maybe even before. For the next week, I played the role of the oblivious sister perfectly. When Damien finally came back from his business trip, I smiled and asked how it went. "Brilliant," he said. "I think we're going to land a major investor." "That's wonderful," I said, my voice steady. Inside, I was screaming. I continued working at the shop. I answered emails, filled orders, managed staff. Everything appeared normal. But every night, I sent Elena more information. Bank statements, contracts, emails, screenshots. She worked fast. 3 days later, she called. "I found the shell company, Meridian Holdings. It's registered in Damien's name. Sole director, sole shareholder." "How is that possible? We're supposed to be equal partners." "Because of the documents you signed. They weren't protection structures. They were transfer agreements. You signed away your operational control without realizing it." I closed my eyes. "Can we reverse it?" "Maybe. But it's going to be complicated. The paperwork looks legitimate on the surface. We'll need to prove fraud. Prove that you were deceived." "I was deceived." "I know. But we need evidence that holds up in court. And we need to move before the full transfer completes." "When does that happen?" "According to the documents, end of this month. 2 weeks from now." 2 weeks? I started digging deeper. I accessed old email accounts. I searched through file cabinets at the shop. I looked for anything Damien might have overlooked. And I found it. Hidden in a folder labeled Archive 2019, there was an email thread between Damien and someone called G. Holt. The timestamp was from 6 months before Dad died. The subject line, "Taylor Print Solutions, Asset Transfer Strategy." My hands trembled as I opened it. Damien had written, "Need to know the cleanest way to gain full control without raising suspicions. Sister is sharp. Has to look legitimate." Holt's response, "Standard trust restructure. Get her to sign during emotional vulnerability period. Illness or death works best. Once operational control is established, ownership transfer follows within 18 months. During emotional vulnerability period. Illness or death works best." They'd been planning this before Dad even died. They'd been waiting for him to die. I printed the email. I saved it to 3 different drives. I sent it to Elena. Then I went to the bathroom and vomited, When I came back to my desk, I called Colin. "I need you to check something else," I said. "Can you access deleted files from my brother's phone?" "Depends on how long ago they were deleted. What are you looking for?" "Proof that he was planning this before our father passed away." There was a pause. "Give me 24 hours. The next day, Colin called me at dawn. "You need to come to the shop, now." I drove there in my pajamas. He had the phone connected to his computer, lines of code running across the screen. "I recovered deleted messages," he said, "from 2 years ago, before your father died." He showed me. Message from Damien to G. "Old man's health is failing. Doctor says his heart could go any time. Need to accelerate timeline." G's response: "Agreed. Have the documents prepared. Strike while emotions are high." I felt something break inside me. My brother had known Dad was dying, and he'd seen it as an opportunity. "There's more," Colin said quietly. He pulled up another message. Damien to G. "Sister will be distracted with funeral arrangements. Perfect window. She'll sign anything I put in front of her." I read it 3 times. "Miss Taylor," Colin said gently, "I know this is your brother, but what he's doing, what he's done, it's sociopathic. I know. You can still stop this, but you have to act now." I nodded. I drove home. I made tea. I sat at my kitchen table. And I started planning. If Damien wanted to play games with paperwork, I'd play back, but I'd play to win. That afternoon, I went to see a solicitor Elena had recommended. Her name was Sarah Chen, a specialist in business fraud and family law. I showed her everything: the contracts, the emails, the phone evidence. She read through it all methodically, her expression darkening with each page. "This is criminal," she said finally. "This isn't just a business dispute. It's fraud, forgery, identity theft. Your brother could go to prison for this. Can we stop the transfer? We can file an emergency injunction. It'll freeze all business assets until a judge reviews the case, but we need to do it before the final transfer date." "Do it." "There's something else you should know," Sarah said. "If we do this, your relationship with your brother is over. There's no coming back from this." I thought about that. About family dinners and Christmas gatherings. About Mum's tears and awkward explanations. Then I thought about the message: strike while emotions are high. My relationship with my brother was over the moment he decided to steal from me, I said. "I just didn't know it yet." Sarah nodded. "Then let's begin." For the next week, we built an airtight case. Sarah filed the injunction. A judge granted an emergency hearing. All business accounts were frozen pending review. Damien didn't know yet. He was still operating as if everything was going according to his plan. But his time was running out. On Friday, exactly 3 weeks after I'd taken his phone to Colin, Damien walked into the shop with a leather folder and that familiar, charming smile. "Kim, we need to talk." "About what?" He slid a document across the counter. "I've been thinking. You've been working so hard, carrying this business basically on your own. It's not fair to you." I looked at the document. "I'm buying you out," he said. "Clean break. You get £75,000. I take over full operations. You're free to do whatever you want. Maybe finally go to university, like you always wanted." I stared at the number. £75,000 for a business worth over $400,000. "You're joking," I said. "I'm being generous, Kim. The business has debts, liabilities. I'm taking all that on. This is a fair offer." "Fair." He leaned forward. "Look, I know you've put in a lot of work. But let's be honest, you're not cut out for this. You never were. You're good at following instructions, at keeping things organized. But leadership, vision, that's not you. I felt something cold settle in my chest. So that's what you think of me. It's not an insult. It's just reality. Some people are meant to lead. Some people are meant to support. There's no shame in knowing which one you are. I wanted to throw the document in his face. I wanted to scream at him. Instead, I smiled. Let me think about it over the weekend. His eyes narrowed slightly. Don't think too long, Kim. This offer expires Monday morning. After that, things get complicated. Complicated how? Just business stuff, legal timelines. You wouldn't understand. He left. I locked the door behind him and stood there, shaking with rage. Colin had been right. My brother wasn't just a thief, he was a predator. That night, Sarah called. The hearing is scheduled for Monday morning, 9 a.m. Can you be there? I'll be there. Kimberly, you should prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. Your brother will fight back. He'll say you're lying, that you're unstable, that you're bitter about family dynamics. Let him try. And your mother? How much does she know? I thought about Mum, about her tears at Dad's funeral, about how she'd always defended Damien, always made excuses. She doesn't know anything, I said. And she's going to hate me for this. Are you prepared for that? I took a deep breath. I've spent my whole life trying to be the daughter my parents wanted, the sister they needed, always putting everyone else first. And now? Now I'm putting myself first, even if it means losing everyone. Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Monday, about what would happen when Damien realized I'd outmaneuvered him. I thought about Dad, about whether he'd be proud or disappointed. Then I remembered something he'd said once, years ago, after Damien had been caught stealing from Mum's purse. Family forgives, Dad had said. That's what we do. But he'd never said anything about consequences. At midnight, I got up and wrote a letter. Not to Damien, to myself. Whatever happens tomorrow, you did the right thing. Trust isn't about blood, it's about behavior. And some people, no matter how much you love them, will never stop hurting you unless you make them stop. I sealed the letter in an envelope. Then I tried to sleep. Monday morning arrived with gray skies and cold rain. I dressed carefully, a navy suit, white blouse, my hair pulled back neatly, professional, composed. Elena met me outside the courthouse. Ready? She asked. As I'll ever be. Sarah was already inside, organizing documents at the plaintiff's table. Damien wasn't there yet. At 8:55, the doors opened. My brother walked in wearing an expensive suit I'd never seen before. Behind him was Gregory Holt, a man in his 60s with silver hair and an expression of practiced concern. Damien saw me and stopped. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Confusion, then understanding, then rage. He crossed the room in 3 strides. What the hell is this, Kim? Please take your seat, Mr. Taylor, Sarah said calmly. You filed an injunction against your own brother? Against someone who committed fraud, I said. The fact that you're my brother doesn't give you immunity. His face went red. You have no idea what you're doing. This is family business. We should be handling this privately. We could have, if you'd been honest. But you weren't. Holt put a hand on Damien's shoulder. Let's sit down. We'll sort this out properly. The judge entered. a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes. This is a hearing regarding an emergency injunction filed by Miss Kimberly Taylor against Mr. Damian Taylor and Meridian Holdings Limited. Miss Chen, you may proceed. Sarah stood. Your Honor, my client was defrauded by her brother through a systematic campaign of document manipulation, identity theft, and financial exploitation. We have substantial evidence. She began laying it out methodically. The signed documents with misleading language, the email correspondence between Damian and Holt planning the theft, the scheduled messages from Damian's phone. Holt tried to object. Your Honor, this is a family dispute over business interpretation, nothing more. I'll decide what this is, the judge said sharply. Continue, Miss Chen. Sarah pulled up the recovered messages from before Dad's death. Your Honor, evidence shows this fraud was premeditated. Mr. Taylor and his legal advisor, Mr. Holt, planned to exploit the death of their father for financial gain. The judge's expression hardened. She looked at Damian. Do you have a response to these allegations? Damian stood. His charm was gone. In its place was something cold. My sister has always been jealous of me, Your Honor. This is about family dynamics, not law. She's bitter that our parents loved me more, that I'm more successful, that I actually have vision for the business while she's content to be a shop clerk. I felt something twist in my chest. She's making this about fraud because she can't handle the fact that she's not good enough to run a business on her own, he continued. Those documents were legitimate restructuring. She just doesn't understand business law. And the messages? The judge asked. The ones discussing striking while emotions are high after your father's death? Taken out of context. Context, the judge repeated. Mr. Holt, you're named in several of these communications. What's your explanation? Holt stood, smooth as silk. Your Honor, I provided legal advice to Mr. Taylor regarding standard business succession planning. If my phrasing seemed insensitive, I apologize. But there was no fraud, no deception. Miss Taylor signed those documents of her own free will. Under duress, Sarah interjected, while grieving her father's death, with intentionally misleading language. That's speculation, Holt countered. The judge held up a hand. I've heard enough for preliminary review. The injunction will remain in place pending full investigation. All business assets remain frozen. Mr. Taylor, you are prohibited from accessing any accounts or making any business decisions related to Taylor Print Solutions until further notice. Damian's face went white. You can't do this. That's my business. It's a jointly owned business that you attempted to steal, the judge said coldly. Be grateful I'm not issuing a criminal referral immediately. Yet. She banged her gavel. Hearing adjourned. Full trial set for 6 weeks from today. Damian turned on me as soon as the judge left. You destroyed us, he hissed. You destroyed our family. I saved myself from you, I said quietly. Mum will never forgive you for this. Maybe not, but at least I can sleep at night. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You think you've won? You think this is over? I will bury you, Kim. I will make sure you never work in this town again. I will make sure everyone knows what a vindictive, jealous, pathetic— Mr. Taylor, Sarah interrupted sharply. I suggest you stop speaking before you add intimidation and harassment to your list of charges. A court officer stepped forward. Is there a problem here? Damian backed off, straightening his jacket. No problem, he said. No problem at all. He walked out, Holt following. I stood there, shaking. You did well, Sarah said. That wasn't easy. What happens now? Now we wait for the full trial. But with the evidence we have, I'm confident. And if we lose, we won't. But as I walked out of the courthouse into the cold rain, I wasn't thinking about winning or losing. I was thinking about Damien's face, the rage, the hatred. He'd never looked at me like that before, like I was his enemy. And I realized, with a sick feeling in my stomach, that maybe I always had been. That night, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Kimberly Ann Taylor, what have you done?" I closed my eyes. "Mum, your brother just told me everything. How you went behind his back, filed legal action, froze the business accounts. How could you?" "Did he tell you he was stealing from me?" "That's not stealing, that's business. He was trying to protect the company. By forging documents and planning it before Dad even died?" There was silence. "What are you talking about?" she said finally. I told her. Everything. The emails. The messages. The timeline. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "I don't believe you," she whispered. "I have proof." "You're lying. You've always been jealous of him." And there it was. The truth I'd always known but never wanted to acknowledge. In her eyes, I would always be the problem. "Mum, I love you, but I'm done pretending that Damien's behavior is acceptable just because he's your favorite. Don't you dare. I'll send you the evidence. You can decide for yourself what you believe. But I'm not apologizing for protecting myself." I hung up. Then I turned off my phone and cried for the first time since this all began. Not because I was sad, because I was free. 3 days after the hearing, Colin called. "I kept digging through your brother's phone," he said. "Found something you need to see." I met him at his shop. He had his laptop open, files spread across the screen. "There's a second layer," he said. "Encrypted communications? Took me a while to crack, but I got in." He pulled up a message thread. "This isn't between your brother and Holt. This is between your brother and someone else. Someone identified only as M." "Who's M?" "I don't know yet. But look at this." The messages were damning. "Damien. Kim suspects something. She's asking about the accounts." M. "Then we accelerate. Pull out before she can block us." Damien. "What if she gets legal involved?" M. "She won't. She's too soft. Too afraid of breaking up the family." Damien. "You're right. She'll back down." M. "And if she doesn't, there are other options." I felt cold. "Other options?" I said. "What does that mean?" Colin's face was grim. "I don't know, but it doesn't sound legal." He scrolled down. "There's more. Financial transfers. Large sums moving from Meridian Holdings to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands." "How much?" "Over £200,000. Transferred 3 weeks ago." I stared at the screen. "He's been siphoning money from the business for months," I said. "And he's not working alone." "Who is M?" Colin shook his head. "That's what we need to find out." I called Elena immediately. "We have a third party," I told her. "Someone helping Damien move money offshore. Can you trace the account?" "Colin's trying, but it's going to take time." "We don't have time. The trial's in 5 weeks. Then we need to force Damien's hand. Make him panic." "How?" I thought for a moment. "I need you to file additional charges. Money laundering, offshore fraud, everything. Make it criminal, not just civil. Kimberly, if we do that, this becomes a police matter. Your brother could go to prison." "Good." There was a pause. "Are you sure?" I thought about the message. If she doesn't back down, there are other options. "I'm sure." 2 days later, police showed up at Damien's flat. They seized his computers, his phones, his documents. He was brought in for questioning. He wasn't arrested, not yet, but the message was clear. This wasn't just a business dispute anymore. This was a criminal investigation. That evening, my phone rang from an unknown number. I answered. "You're making a terrible mistake," a woman's voice said. "Who is this?" "Someone who's trying to help you." "Help me by threatening me." "I'm not threatening you. I'm warning you. You're in over your head. Drop the charges, walk away. Take whatever settlement Damien offers and disappear." Why would I do that? Because there are things you don't understand. People involved who won't let this case go to trial. "Are you M?" I asked. Silence. "Who are you?" I demanded. "Someone who's seen what happens to people who don't listen." The line went dead. I called Colin immediately. "Can you trace a number?" "Depends." "What number?" I gave it to him. 20 minutes later, he called back. "It's a burner phone, purchased with cash. No registered owner, but I tracked the location when the call was made." "Where?" "Grayson and Holt Legal Services." My stomach dropped. "It came from Holt's office?" "Or someone in his office." I called Sarah. "We have a problem." I explained the call, the threats, the connection to Holt's office. "This changes everything," she said. "If Holt's firm is directly threatening you, we can add witness intimidation to the charges. But Kimberly, you need protection." "Protection?" "Police protection. Until this is over, you're not safe." "You think they'd actually hurt me?" "I think when people are facing prison and financial ruin, they're capable of anything." That night, a police officer was stationed outside my flat. I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow seemed threatening. This wasn't supposed to happen. I just wanted to stop my brother from stealing from me. Now, I was living in fear. At 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Last chance. Drop it or face consequences." I screenshotted it and sent it to Sarah and the police. Then I turned off my phone and sat in the dark, listening to the officer's footsteps outside my door. The next morning, Colin called again. "I found M." "Who is it?" "Monica Breslin. She's a financial consultant who works with Holt. She's the one who's been setting up the offshore accounts, moving the money, covering the paper trail." "Can we prove it?" "I can. But we need access to her communications, and to get that, we need a warrant." "Then let's get one." Sarah filed for a warrant that afternoon. By evening, police had raided Monica Breslin's office. They found everything: emails, transfers, proof of conspiracy. Monica was arrested. So was Gregory Holt. And at 8 o'clock that night, police arrested Damien. I watched the news coverage from my flat. Saw my brother in handcuffs, his face pale and shocked. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication. Just empty. The trial was fast-tracked. With 3 defendants in custody and overwhelming evidence, the prosecution moved quickly. 6 weeks later, I stood in court again. This time, I wasn't the plaintiff. I was a witness. Sarah walked me through my testimony. The forged documents, the hidden messages, the offshore accounts. Damien's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, jealous, unreliable. But the evidence spoke for itself. 3 days later, the verdict came. Guilty on all charges. Damien was sentenced to 4 years. Holt to 6. Monica to 3. When the judge read the sentence, Damien turned and looked at me. His face was empty, defeated. For a moment, I saw the boy he used to be, my little brother. the one who'd once held my hand crossing the street. Then I looked away. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. "Miss Taylor, how do you feel about your brother's conviction? Do you regret pressing charges? Will you visit him in prison?" Sarah guided me past them. "No comment," she said firmly. In the car, I finally exhaled. "It's over," I said. "It's over," Sarah confirmed. "What happens now?" "Now you rebuild." 1 year later, I'm sitting at Dad's old desk in the shop, the morning sun streaming through the windows he used to clean every Saturday morning. Taylor Print Solutions is thriving. We expanded to a second location in Bath last March. We hired 8 new staff members. Our revenue is up 43% from 2 years ago. We've won contracts with companies Dad used to dream about working with. Every morning when I unlock the door, I think about him, about what he'd say if he could see what we've become. I think he'd be proud, not of what Damien tried to steal, but of what I saved. Colin Wright is now our IT security consultant. He works 3 days a week, helping me protect small businesses from exactly the kind of fraud I survived. Last month, we presented a workshop at the local business council. 23 family businesses attended. 3 of them discovered irregularities in their own accounts afterward. Colin's work is saving people. Elena joined our advisory board as financial consultant. Every quarter, we review the books together. Every decision goes through proper channels now. No more rushed signatures. No more blind trust. My relationship with Mum is complicated. She visits Damien in prison every Wednesday afternoon. She sends him care packages. She writes him letters. She still believes in some deep part of herself that he was trying to help, that I overreacted, that families should forgive. We have dinner once a month. We talk about the weather, about her garden, about safe topics that don't involve my brother. Sometimes she cries. Sometimes she asks me if I'll drop the restraining order when Damien gets out. I always say the same thing. "Not yet, Mum. Maybe not ever." She doesn't understand. Maybe she never will. But I've learned that I can love someone and still protect myself from them, even if that someone is my mother. Last month, I received a letter from Damien, his first communication since the trial ended. The envelope was prison issue. His handwriting was smaller than I remembered, cramped and careful. I held it for 10 minutes before opening it. Inside, just 3 words. "I'm sorry, Kim." Nothing else. No explanation, no excuses, no plea for forgiveness. Just those 3 words. I read the letter 5 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer in my desk. The same drawer where I keep that old photo of us as children. Maybe someday I'll respond. Maybe I'll visit him. Maybe I'll even forgive him. But not today. Forgiveness isn't something you give because someone asks. It's something you give when you're ready, when it won't cost you your peace, when it won't undo the boundaries you fought so hard to build. And I'm not ready yet. Maybe I never will be. And that's okay. I've learned something important this past year, something I wish I'd known earlier. You don't owe anyone your suffering, not your family, not your friends, not anyone. When someone hurts you, you're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to protect yourself. You're allowed to choose peace over reconciliation. People will say you're bitter, unforgiving, cold. Let them. They're not the ones who had to rebuild their life from ashes. They're not the ones who had to learn that the person they trusted most was plotting their destruction. They're not the ones who discovered that family can be the most dangerous word in the world. 3 weeks ago, I did something I'd put off for 14 years. I enrolled at the University of the West of England. Evening classes. Business management with a focus on entrepreneurship. I'm the oldest student in my cohort by a decade. I don't care. On my first day, the lecturer asked us to introduce ourselves and explain why we were there. When it was my turn, I stood up and said, "My name is Kimberly Taylor. I'm here because I finally decided to live for myself, not for my family, not for my father's legacy. For me." The room was silent. Then a woman in the back row started clapping, then another, then everyone. I sat down, face burning, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Pride, not in surviving, not in winning, in choosing myself. The other night, I was closing up the shop when I found an old photo tucked behind the register. It must have fallen back there years ago, forgotten. Me and Damien, we must have been 7 and 5. Summer holiday in Cornwall. He was missing his front teeth, grinning at the camera with sand in his hair. I had my arm around him, smiling that careful smile I learned early. We looked happy. Maybe we were, once. Before the favoritism started. Before the resentment built. Before love became a competition neither of us could win. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I put it in the drawer with his letter. Some memories are worth keeping, even the painful ones, because they remind you of who you were and who you refused to become. I could have become bitter, vengeful, consumed by what happened. Instead, I became stronger. I became someone who knows her worth, someone who won't accept betrayal as the price of belonging, someone who understands that the truest family isn't the one you're born into, it's the one you choose. I've learned a lot this past year about trust, about family, about myself. I learned that blood doesn't make you loyal. Actions do. I learned that protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. I learned that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who know you best. And I learned that the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for them is to stop them. People ask if I regret what happened, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is no. Could I have tried to talk to Damien first? Maybe. But he'd already made his choice. He'd made it before Dad died. He'd made it every time he forged my signature. He'd made it when he called me too soft to fight back. I didn't destroy my family. He did. I just refused to go down with him. Last week, I finally did something I'd put off for 14 years. I enrolled in university. Business management. Evening classes. I'm the oldest student in my program by a decade. I don't care. I'm doing this for me. Not for Dad. Not for Mum. Not to prove anything to anyone. Just for me. The other night, I was closing up the shop when I found an old photo tucked behind the register. Me and Damien. We must have been 7 and 5. He was missing his front teeth, grinning at the camera. I had my arm around him. We looked happy. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I put it in the drawer with his letter. Some memories are worth keeping, even painful ones, because they remind you of who you were and who you refused to become. My name is Kimberly Taylor. I'm 33 years old. I survived my brother's betrayal. I rebuilt my father's business. I protected my future. And I learned the most important lesson of all. Trust is a gift, not a right. And when someone betrays that trust, the kindest thing you can do for both of you is to stop them. Not with violence, not with revenge, with clarity, with evidence, with truth. People say the best revenge is living well. They're right. But the second best revenge? is making sure the people who tried to destroy you can never do it to anyone else. 3 months ago, I testified before Parliament about financial fraud targeting family businesses. My testimony helped pass new legislation protecting victims of sibling exploitation. Damien's case became a precedent. Now, others who face what I faced have legal recourse. That's justice, not just for me, for everyone. Last night, I had dinner with Elena and Colin. We laughed about something stupid. We talked about the future. We made plans. And for the first time in years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because I'm free. Free from lies. Free from manipulation. Free from family obligations that only went one direction. Free to be myself. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, I want you to know something. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. And you deserve better. Don't let anyone convince you that protecting yourself is cruel. Don't let anyone tell you that family means accepting abuse. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for choosing yourself. Because at the end of the day, the only person responsible for your life is you. Not your brother, not your mother, not your father. You. And you deserve to build a life you're proud of, even if it means losing people you love, even if it means standing alone. Because sometimes, alone is better than betrayed. My name is Kimberly Taylor, and I didn't just survive my brother's betrayal. I turned it into my freedom. If you've experienced something similar, drop a comment below. Share your story. You might help someone else who's going through what you survived. And remember, the best revenge isn't violence. It's clarity. It's truth. It's living well. Thank you for listening. This is my story, and I'm just getting started.